wasn't coming from seniorage, not much anyway. It's just the seniorage on the coins that's used to offset some of the interest on the debt. So the governing principle, very similar to what Uli was talking about. Basically a sufficient supply of money and to maintain targets and promote goals. So, like Uli was saying, seniorage is not part of revenue, it's what's called an other financing source. So the components of the federal budget would be revenue, seniorage and borrow, and the outgoings would be dispersals from seniorage and net lending from the revolving fund. So that's just loans going out, less repayments coming in. So the main differences between the Need Act and the Robertson-Huber reform proposal, which is the basis of most of the reform proposals in Europe and in other IMR member group proposals, if they have one at all. The positive money proposal is basically based on Robertson-Huber. So basically the only main differences are that the Robertson-Huber, they don't convert all the money, they only convert demand deposits, not savings or time deposits. Whereas I've tried to express to them that in America at least, and in most other countries, a time deposit, savings deposit, you can make payments with it. You can get it basically on demand. It basically is just another name for a demand deposit. So it got converted from a demand deposit into whatever time deposit or savings account, whatever you want to call it. It didn't, and those deposits don't get lent to anyone else. They're still deposits, and you can still get them if you want to make payments. So yeah, the same. Oh, and with the Robertson-Huber, they keep the central bank in place, which with the Need Act would dissolve the central bank Federal Reserve System.
I don't think so.
And only keep functions of it within the Treasury as a bureau. So yeah, the deposit money is the same. Volgeld was basically the same. It did not convert all the bank money, and it kept the central bank as well. So how do we sell the reform to economists, accountants, and such like? Well, first they've got to understand money. They don't seem to. Okay, lots of people have talked about this Aristotle's definition of money, so we all know that. Constitution. I mean, I don't understand why some people say that the government shouldn't be involved in money, where it says quite clearly in the Constitution that the Congress has that power. So what early Courtship says is an enumerated power. I don't see how you can dispute that. And the Treasury, they say like Uli said, this comes from the annual reports. And this is what I first discovered. I think it was 2011, and this is what I helped Uli with this language. And here it is. It's quite clear how seniorage is treated in the accounting. And this is the same quote that Uli gave in his presentation. Seniorage results from the sovereign power of the government to directly create money, and although not an inflow of resources from the public, does increase the government's net position in the same manner as an inflow of resources. And even the Fed, on their financial accounts, they have an item there that they call treasury currency, and they're an asset, but they don't have a balancing liability, so they have a net asset. or a net equity position on the accounts, and they call that an instrument discrepancy.
Instrument what?
They call it an instrument discrepancy. They think it's a discrepancy to have money that is a net asset.
Those are the coins?
Yeah, mainly the coins, and maybe some residual of US notes as well. Not sure. There are some that are still in circulation, but most are collector's items now. So, yeah, the balance sheet, that's where the change happens. The net position just means equity, and assets means cash balance. So, yeah, there's the cash balance. So that's usually the first item on the asset side of the balance sheet is the cash that you've got on hand. So payments would be peer-to-peer, well within a bank would be exactly the same as they are now, just moving from account to account. Between banks would be peer-to-peer, like cryptocurrencies and digital assets, distributed ledgers. And lending would be the way that most people think it is now. You know, the surveys that have been done, at least between 80 and 95% of people think that this is the way that things work. And lending between bank customers, customer A would make a loan to the bank, and then the bank would make a loan to customer B or customer 2. So again, like most people would imagine it happens now. And it could still be interbank lending. Banks could still borrow funds from between each other. And if that's not enough, then they can borrow from the revolving fund. So there's lots of sources of funds for funding loans for banks. Actually, way more than now, really. So, the objection, probably the most common objection we get from economists is that they think that without reform, banks wouldn't be able to make loans. Now, I don't understand why, because you are not a bank, and you can make a loan, can't you? You can loan some money to someone else. So I don't know why they think the banks wouldn't be able to do that, but so here's the list of sources of funds. So you can have money from previous savings and time deposits. If people don't want to have all those as on hand as transaction accounts, they can place it with their bank, and they'll get some sort of security or bond in return, which will have a variable value. And then those funds will actually go to the bank, and then from the bank to the borrowers, the bank will invest them for you, basically. Like when you buy a corporate bond, the corporation will use your money to then go and buy some equipment or something. And on the primary market, of course, on the secondary market, stocks and bonds don't do anything for the issuer. They're just an exchange of assets between buyers and sellers. Okay, so money from the redeemed government securities, as the Treasury securities are paid off, people are going to want to reinvest those funds somewhere, so there's going to be a large amount of investment into the private sector, and a fair amount of that will probably be channeled through banks because, okay, despite all of their misdemeanours with, leading up to the 2008 crash, they still do have a lot of skilled staff that know how to, or should know how to underwrite loans and things like that. So, and people still feel safe going to a bank rather than going to and for normal people, they probably they wouldn't know how to go to a hedge fund or a private equity firm. I wouldn't. But I do know how to go to a bank. So, and then banks will be able to use their own funds because they won't need to use reserves to clear their customers' payments. Their reserves will become their own funds, and they can use those to make loans as well. and banks will be able to borrow from other banks as well, from other banks' funds, and they'll be able to borrow from the revolving fund. And if all of that's not enough, which is about $22 trillion worth, then there can be more additional seniorage authorised by Congress. So rather than banks not being able to make loans, they'd be able to make far too many, so there'd have to be some restrictions on them, like some credit guidance or window guidance, something like that.
Can you explain more what you mean by the mechanics of this additional temporary seniorage or origination?
Well,
Number 6.
if the banks are saying, look, there's not enough money for us to lend, then the Congress could authorise some more.
To go directly to the banks?
Well, probably via the revolving fund. Yeah, I'm just saying that there's no problem. It's just bits of numbers on a computer. There's no limit to how many you can have. What matters is the real world, the real resources. So saying that banks would be able to make loans, I just don't understand the argument, because it's just bits and bytes on a computer chip.
Jamie,
Yeah.
I'm glad for this discussion too, because sometimes in the online discussions, there are a couple people who are really very articulate and have this concern. Like you, I don't understand why, except not like you, because I don't understand a lot more. But that's why I'm interested in what you're saying here, because we want to figure out, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, I think I know the person you're talking about.
And
So
for example, I would like to understand number 2, money from banks all own treasury bonds, and when things change, they will be selling them, or they could sell them?
They'll be getting money when those bonds are retired, and paid off when they come due. They'll have some money, but they don't want to sit on money. They want to invest. They want to earn interest.
Right.
So they're going to reinvest that money into something else, which will probably be corporate bonds or IPOs, or they may even invest in digital assets.
So this is a helpful list to
Well,
talk
yeah,
to those
I know.
people.
But I've given this list for 10 years and had the economists that object to it sitting here, and I've spoken to them one-on-one, and they still don't seem to get it. But I know Norman says we shouldn't be frustrated, and hopefully I'm going to ask Norman to come up here later, and because we do need to find ways to communicate with economists and to mint our own economists. So,
Jamie. Why do you say from previous savings and time deposits? At post-transition, it would be the money that's in the savings and time deposits, right? And there would be an adjustment, because some of it might have come out and gone into demand, right?
Yeah.
So the way I say it is, it's the M2 minus M1 basically measure that keeps going forward, and that's available. That's all available.
Well, that's basically what I mean. Most, you'll have like 1 to 2 years to decide how much physical cash you want to have, how much you want to keep in a transaction account, and whatever spare balances that you're going to have at that time, you may opt to place with your bank, and you'll have it pre-arranged so that on day one the bank knows that they've got a certain amount of funds that they can have placed with them to start making loans on day one from these previous types of accounts.
Right.
And they'll issue you with some sort of security, like a bond or a certificate or something.
Right.
In exchange for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's not like they're going to drop. It's not like they're going to have. I mean, at the moment, the savings and time deposits are like 78 to 80% of the money, of the broad money supply. The checking accounts and the cash in circulation, well, the checking accounts is even less than the cash in circulation, although a lot of that cash in circulation is outside of the US.
Right.
About 2/3 of it at least. Yeah. Okay, we won't need to go into that detail. But basically, the federal, what the Federal Reserve used to call the flow of funds came from some early work, reasonably early work that accountants did in the 50s and 60s, and so I found it useful to read that history about what they call sources and uses, But anyway, we don't need to go into that. But I do, I sort of was in communication with Michael Kupoff about this, and I really like this quote. I mean, another usual objection is that, oh, it'll create inflation. If you do this, the government will create too much money, it'll create inflation. Well, I mean, if you've got rules that are statutorily confined body following rules, they've got no interest in, they're not making any profit themselves out of deciding these decisions. So, yeah, go ahead.
Does this formula include or incorporate the money velocity? So it's about a rate of money growth proportionate to the growth rate of the output.
These are rates. Yeah, these are flows. So I mean, velocity. Basically, what Dennis Kanega was saying, that the value of transactions times the velocity is the payment rate, which, anyway, what this session is about. How do we develop a strategy to promote this among economists, among other professionals like accountants, lawyers, among grassroots activist organisations, and particularly among students, students of economics or students of public policy, students of public finance, and the people that we need to reach to start developing this body of literature that understands this stuff, because it's, as you found, it's pretty thin. I mean, there is, you found a lot, but it's still, compared to the other side, it's like a needle in a haystack. So again, people are concerned about jumping off the cliff, and that is one of the main concerns, is that jumping into a new system. But we've been pushed off cliffs this many times under the present system. So again, I don't quite understand the logic of that. But there's always fear of the unknown. That is a perfectly rational, well, maybe not rational, but it's a perfectly understandable concern for sure. And that is probably at the core, at the base of our main problem, is the fear of the unknown. Well, this is last year we introduced the cryptocurrencies and the difference between centralised and decentralised systems. And one of the main, another main objection is that we're having a centralised system, whereas I try to explain to people that the monetary authority is only going to be adjusted. I'm suggesting adjustments to the money supply at the margin. What it costs at the margin, it may only be 1 or 2%. It may not be at all in a steady state economy. There may be no change in the money supply, and so it's actually the banks and individuals, if they hold, you can hold digital wallets with stored value cards. It's a peer-to-peer system that the NEAT Act would do. So it's a distributed system. It's not. It's like the opposite of centralised. That's difficult to explain as well. Okay, we've got Aristotle's quote. So. And law includes social custom. Okay, so one of the things that for reaching, particularly, a lot of people have sort of come to the realisation that we need to live more sustainably. Now there is some differences of opinion about the extent of that, or the alarm. Some of it is considered to be alarmist, but I think there's not many people that would want to have toxins in their air and water and soil. So I think that if you can focus on those things, I think you get pretty much 100% agreement. So. In just about every country in the world, because since banks have been involved in mortgages, the house prices have just gone through the roof. It used to be average house price was about 1.5 years average salary or something, and now it's like, in a lot of countries, it's like 10 times, 10 times that. So it's just, and so the young people today, they can hardly even consider buying a car, let alone buying a house. That's a big problem. And this is the sort of thing we need to be doing. And I can't see how any partial reforms or having a few municipally owned banks or something. I mean, I support those things, but they're not gonna get us to this. So how do we develop our message? How do we work out a strategy for reaching the people that we want to get alongside to support this? So that's what I want to talk about now. And there has been success, like in there has been success in Europe. We've had the people there have made contact with former central bank people, like from Spain, and in Madrid in March. We had a nice time with this gentleman next to me is the former governor of the Bank of Spain, and he's really on board, and hopefully he'll be able to speak central bankers' language to explain it to them, because at the IMMR conference in Stockholm we had a lot of central bank economists and bank economists, bankers association economists, and they really didn't understand what we were saying. I mean, it was good to have them in the same room. That was like in Frankfurt and in Stockholm. It was a real achievement to have them in the same room with us, but they really didn't understand what we were saying. They were still reverting back to their equilibrium models and their concerns about welfare effects. And I'm thinking, well, you've got the world's worst inequality in history, basically, or at least in 20th century. So what are you talking about welfare effects? Whose welfare?
Jamie, when you saw Miguel in Stockholm, and he was with us in Spain, was he better off than the others? It seems like he was really communicating with us in terms of how he viewed the world, and then how, and he was sort of saying, help us so we can help you. We don't get you yet. He was sort of getting that going.
Yeah, he really understands it, and there are a few other ones that are sort of on the periphery, and they're kind of writing some good stuff. But for the new people that are exposed to this, it's like I don't get it. So now I'd like to call Norman and Hovert to talk about how do we reach the academics and how do we get the body of work and then the students and all of that. So please.
I can't find it right now.
Was it in here? Did you leave it in here last night?
I didn't think so. I thought I took it home, but couldn't
Let
find
me
it.
look at it for a second, see what kind of power it is. I might have something in there.
What do you mean?
How many volts is the power battery?
Oh no, I've got my plug-in. I don't have my tripod. I'm sorry.
Oh, the iPad. Oh, the plug-in you got. Okay. Yeah, I do. Gotcha.
My power supply.
Yeah. That's what I was concerned about. Not the power supply. It only lasts so long. Okay.
Howard, the other thing I can't find, I hate to say it, is your Rick,
That's okay.
no, it's not.
I got more here.
I went back over there to try to see if I could find it anywhere again, but I couldn't. The thing is that I was planning